The massive starship Dauntless hung in orbit above the desolate world of Proxima b, its hull scarred from the recent battle. Inside the command center, Captain Jack Reed stared at the holographic display with narrowed eyes. The alien creature they'd been tracking, codenamed Harbinger, had decimated 3 colonies in the past month. "It can't be killed by conventional weapons," said Science Officer Davis, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "We've tried everything from plasma cannons to antimatter warheads. The creature simply regenerates." "Lieutenant Ben," Torres scoffed. "Everything has a weakness. We just haven't found it yet." The alien delegates from the Arcturus Alliance shifted uncomfortably at the table. Ambassador Kell, a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms, leaned forward. "You don't understand, humans. Our civilization has tracked this entity for 9 centuries. It has destroyed 17 worlds. We call it the Eternal. It consumes all life on a planet before moving to the next. My ancestors' most powerful weapons barely slowed it." Reed's jaw tightened. "Yet you came to us for help." "As a last resort," another alien diplomat muttered. "The Eternal has never encountered humans before," Kell explained. "Your species has a reputation," Torres grinned. "For being stubborn as hell? For achieving the impossible," Kell replied. "Your kind has survived calamities that would have extinguished other species. You adapt. You persist. You innovate in ways we cannot predict." On the display, satellite footage showed the creature moving across Proxima b's surface, a writhing mass of dark matter and energy, absorbing everything in its path. The ground itself seemed to disintegrate where it touched. "It defies physical laws as we understand them," Davis said, analyzing the readings. "It exists partially in our dimension and partially elsewhere. That's why conventional weapons just pass through it." Reed stood up and paced the room. "If we can't kill it with force, we find another way. Davis, keep studying that thing. I want to know what it's made of, how it thinks, what it wants." He turned to the alien ambassador. "And I want to know everything your people have learned about it." "Captain," Kell said hesitantly, "you should know that the creature is heading toward the human colony on Proxima c. You have perhaps 3 days before it reaches them." "Then we have 3 days to solve this," Reed replied, his voice steel. "Torres, assemble a ground team. I want our best specialists down there to observe this thing up close." "Sir, with all due respect," Torres began. "I know it's dangerous." Reed cut him off. "But we need first-hand intelligence if we're going to beat this thing." Ambassador Kell tilted his head, the gesture conveying both confusion and grudging respect. "May I ask what you hope to accomplish?" "Our finest warriors could not even approach the Eternal without being consumed." Reed smiled grimly. "We're not going to fight it, not yet. First, we're going to understand it. Everything has rules, Ambassador. Everything has limits. Even an unkillable monster." As the meeting adjourned, Reed stayed behind, studying the creature's movements. Throughout human history, from the earliest days on Earth to their expansion among the stars, humanity had faced seemingly insurmountable threats. Each time they had survived not through superior strength, but through ingenuity, sacrifice, and sheer determination. He pulled up the colony data on Proxima c. 15,000 people, including families with children. They had already begun emergency evacuations, but there was no way to get everyone out in time. Reed made his decision. Humanity's newest, greatest challenge awaited. The monster might be unkillable, but it hadn't met humans yet. Dr. Amanda Wells balanced on the edge of the ravine. Her specialized sensor array pointed at the approaching anomaly. 2 miles away, the Harbinger flowed like liquid darkness across the rocky terrain, leaving nothing but barren earth in its wake. "Getting some fascinating readings here," she said into her comm. "It's generating an inverse quantum field that destabilizes matter at the subatomic level. That's how it consumes. It breaks down the bonds between particles." Beside her, the team's security lead, Major Tom Wilson, kept his rifle ready, despite knowing it would be useless against the creature. "Less science, more retreat, Doc. That thing's moving faster than we anticipated." Their 6-person research team had been observing the entity for 18 hours, staying ahead of its seemingly random path while gathering data. The dropship waited a quarter-mile behind them, ready for quick evacuation. 5 more minutes, Amanda insisted, adjusting her equipment. I need to confirm my theory. Wilson sighed. Civilians, always pushing the limits. 3 minutes. Then, we move! The commotion began with a rumble beneath their feet. The ground shifted, and a section of the ravine collapsed. Wilson grabbed Amanda's arm, pulling her back just as the ledge crumbled away. "Time's up," he shouted. But as they turned to run, they saw it. The creature had changed direction, moving with sudden purpose directly toward their position. It was as if it had sensed them. "It knows we're here," Amanda whispered, her scientific curiosity momentarily overridden by primal fear. Wilson barked into his comm. "All teams fall back to evac point Alpha. Move! Move!" They sprinted across the rocky terrain, the rest of the team converging from their observation posts. Behind them, the Harbinger accelerated, covering ground at an impossible speed. As they reached the dropship, Wilson did a quick head count. 5. They were missing someone. "Where's Erickson?" he demanded. Amanda pointed back toward an outcropping of rocks. Their geological specialist had tripped and fallen into a crevice. He was limping toward them, but the creature was closing in fast. Wilson cursed and started. "Back, Major, no!" Amanda grabbed his arm. "You'll both be killed." "Not an option," he growled, shaking her off. He sprinted toward Erickson, who was now desperately scrambling up the rocky slope. The Harbinger sensed the easier prey and diverted toward Erickson. Wilson reached him just as the man's leg gave out again. He hauled the geologist up, supporting his weight as they stumbled toward the ship. The darkness closed in behind them, tendrils of void reaching out like hungry fingers. "We're not going to make it," Erickson gasped. Wilson pulled something from his belt, a small cylindrical device. "Captain's new toy. Let's see if it works." He tossed it behind them. Upon impact, it burst into a miniature sun of blinding white light. The creature recoiled, its amorphous form rippling as if in pain. "It doesn't like light?" Erickson asked, astonished. "Not this kind. Concentrated photonic energy at a specific frequency." Davis figured it might disrupt its field. They reached the dropship as the light began to fade. The creature recovered and surged forward, but the ship was already lifting off, thrusters burning hot against the darkening sky. Back on the Dauntless, Captain Reed reviewed their findings with growing excitement. "So it can be hurt," he said. Amanda nodded. "Temporarily disrupted, at least. The light didn't damage it permanently, but it created a consistent repulsion effect. Which means it follows rules we can understand," Reed concluded. "We just need to find the right approach." Ambassador Kell seemed skeptical. "A momentary delay is not a victory," Reed smiled. "No, but it's a start. And for humans, that's often enough." As the team compiled their data, a new alert sounded. The Harbinger had changed course again, now heading directly toward the largest settlement on Proxima C. "It's as if it knew we were studying it," Amanda said, troubled. "And now it's retaliating." "Or," Reed suggested, "we've just become more interesting than empty terrain." Either way, their timeline had just shortened dramatically. The race to save 15,000 colonists was on. The colonial settlement of New Haven sprawled across the valley, a patchwork of prefabricated structures and newly constructed buildings. Evacuation ships roared overhead, filled beyond capacity with colonists, fleeing to orbital platforms. But too many remained. Lieutenant Torres supervised the defense preparations with grim efficiency. "Place the photonic emitters in a concentric pattern," he ordered the engineers. "We need overlapping fields of coverage." Based on Dr. Wells's findings, they had hastily manufactured hundreds of the light-emitting devices that had temporarily repelled the creature. It wasn't a solution, but it might buy time. "The evacuation's only at 40%, Communications Officer Lisa Patel reported. "We need at least 12 more hours to get everyone out." Torres nodded. "Then we give them 12 hours. On the ridge overlooking the settlement, Captain Reed met with the colony's governor, a stocky man named Mike Greaves. "Your people should have been evacuated weeks ago," Reed said without preamble. Greaves scowled. "The Alliance assured us this threat was being contained. Besides, you try moving thousands of people with the limited transport we have. This isn't Earth with its endless resources." Reed couldn't argue with that. Frontier colonies always operated on thin margins. "We've set up an emergency command center in your main facility," Reed explained. "We're going to try something that might drive this thing away from your settlement." "Might?" Greaves asked. "It's our best shot," Reed replied honestly. Inside the command center, Dr. Wells and Science Officer Davis worked feverishly with a team of specialists. The room was crowded with equipment hastily transferred from the Dauntless. "The creature is essentially a trans-dimensional entity," Amanda explained to Reed when he entered. "It exists partially in our space-time and partially in, well, somewhere else. That's why conventional weapons pass through it," Davis continued. "But its multi-dimensional nature is also a vulnerability. We're going to create a resonance field that should disrupt its ability to maintain cohesion between dimensions." "In English, please," Reed requested. "We're going to try to force it fully into our dimension," Amanda said. "If we succeed, it becomes subject to all our physical laws." "And then we can kill it?" Torres asked from the doorway. "Theoretically," Davis hedged. Reed checked the time. "The creature will be here in less than an hour. Will you be ready?" Amanda nodded hesitantly. "The emitter array is almost in position. But Captain, this is experimental technology. We've never attempted anything like this before." "Welcome to the frontier, Doctor," Reed said grimly. As preparations continued, Ambassador Kell approached Reed privately. "Your people show remarkable courage," the alien said. "But I fear it may be misplaced. Even if you succeed in containing the Eternal temporarily, you cannot destroy it." Reed crossed his arms. "Why do you say that?" "Because it has existed since before my civilization achieved spaceflight. Our records indicate it is ancient beyond measure. Some believe it to be a fragment of the universe's creation." "Everything that exists can cease to exist," Reed countered. "That's a universal constant." The ambassador's forearms made a complex gesture that Reed interpreted as resignation. "I hope you are right, Captain, for all our sakes." The warning klaxons sounded. On the horizon, the darkness approached, a roiling mass of void consuming everything in its path. Trees, rocks, soil, all disappeared into its maw of nothingness. The colonists still awaiting evacuation watched in horror from behind the hastily established perimeter. Children clutched their parents' hands, wide-eyed with fear. "Activate the photonic barrier," Torres commanded. Around the settlement, hundreds of devices activated simultaneously, creating a dome of brilliant light. The creature's advance slowed. As it encountered the barrier, its amorphous form rippling with what almost looked like irritation. "It's working!" someone shouted. But Reed knew better. He watched as the entity began to probe the barrier, tendrils of darkness testing for weaknesses. "It's learning," he murmured. "Davis, how long until the resonance field is ready?" 20 minutes, minimum," she replied, fingers flying over her console. Reed watched as a tendril found a gap between emitters. The darkness slipped through, expanding. "Inside their defensive perimeter. We don't have 20 minutes, he said. "Do it now." The resonance generators hummed to life, their pitch rising until it passed beyond human hearing. Dr. Wells watched the readings anxiously, making minute adjustments as the massive machines channeled power from the colony's fusion plant. "We're at 70% capacity," she announced. "It might not be enough to fully contain the entity." Outside, the photonic barrier was failing section by section, as the Harbinger systematically disabled the emitters. Colonial militia and Reed's security team fell back toward the central plaza, herding remaining civilians toward the last evacuation ships. "We need more power," Davis said, frustration evident in her voice. "The field isn't stable enough." Torres burst into the command center, his uniform singed. "We're losing ground out there. The light barriers are only slowing it down now. It's adapting." Reed made a quick decision. "Reroute power from the colony's auxiliary systems. Everything except life support and evacuation launch pads. That includes medical facilities," Governor Greaves protested. "If that thing gets through, there won't be anyone left to treat," Reed countered. Reluctantly, Greaves gave the order. Across the settlement, lights dimmed as power was diverted to the resonance generators. The pitch of the machines deepened as they drew more energy. 90%, Amanda reported. "Field stabilizing." On the monitors, they watched as the dark entity encountered the invisible resonance field. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then gradually, The creature's amorphous edges began to shimmer and solidify. "It's working!" Davis exclaimed. "The entity is being forced to fully materialize, in our dimension." But their victory was short-lived. As the creature solidified, it also changed form. What had been an indistinct mass of darkness now took on a more defined shape. Something vaguely insectoid but with too many limbs, its surface a shifting mosaic of what looked like chitin plates and exposed muscle. "What the hell?" Torres whispered. The materialized creature let out a sound, part screech, part rumble, that shook the ground beneath their feet. With new, physical appendages, it began tearing through buildings with frightening efficiency. "This wasn't supposed to happen," Amanda said, horrified. "It should have been weakened by the transition." Reed's mind raced. "It's still bound by physical laws now, which means we can kill it," Torres finished, already moving toward the door. "I need heavy weapons, now." As Torres coordinated the counterattack, Reed watched the creature's movements on the monitor. It wasn't randomly destroying anymore. It was hunting. Specifically, it was moving toward the resonance generators, Reed realized. "It's targeting our technology." "It can't be intelligent," Davis argued. "Our readings show no brainwave patterns we recognize." "Maybe intelligence takes different forms out there," Reed replied. "Either way, we need to protect those generators, or we lose our only advantage." Outside, Torres had assembled a strike team armed with the colony's heaviest weapons, mining explosives, industrial plasma cutters, and a few military-grade pulse rifles. As the creature approached the main generator facility, they opened fire. Unlike before, their weapons now had an effect. Explosives tore chunks from the entity's form. Plasma fire left scorched furrows across its surface. The creature reeled, back, making that bone-chilling sound again. "Push forward," Torres ordered. "Don't let up." For a moment it seemed they might succeed. The creature retreated several steps, apparently vulnerable to their attack, but then it adapted again. The wounds on its surface began to close, regenerating at an impossible rate. It grew armored plates where the weapons had done the most damage. Torres watched in dismay as their most powerful weapons gradually became ineffective. "Fall back," he commanded. "Regroup at position Delta." In the command center, Reed made another decision. "Dr. Wells, can you increase the field intensity? Push it even further into our dimension." "I can try," she said. "But the system's already redlining. It could overload." "Do it," Reed ordered. "Davis, what happens if the resonance field collapses while the entity is partially materialized?" "Unknown," she admitted, "but likely catastrophic. For the entity, and for us." It was a gamble, but they were running out of options. As Amanda pushed the resonance generators beyond their safety limits, the building began to shake. "Evacuation." "Status?" Reed demanded. 83% complete, Patel reported. "Final ships loading now." Outside, the battle continued. The creature had adapted to their weapons but was still constrained by the resonance field. It couldn't revert to its invulnerable state as long as the generators remained active. Torres had switched tactics, now using hit-and-run maneuvers to draw the creature away from the generators and the remaining civilians. It was working, but at a cost. 3 of his team were already down, their bodies broken by the creature's powerful limbs. "Captain," Torres reported through his comm, "we can't stop this thing conventionally. Even in physical form, it's too powerful and adaptable." Reed looked at the colony's schematics, searching for an answer. His eye caught on something, the fusion plant that powered the entire settlement. "If we can't kill it," he said slowly, "maybe we can trap it." The fusion plant's reactor core glowed an eerie blue behind thick radiation shielding. Chief Engineer Paul Moore regarded Captain Reed with open skepticism. "Let me get this straight," Moore said. "You want to deliberately overload the colony's only power source, creating a localized quantum singularity, in the hope that it will trap this creature?" "That's correct," Reed confirmed. "And you're aware that this will completely destroy the colony? Everything we've built over 7 years?" Reed's expression hardened. "I'm aware that if we don't stop this thing here, it won't just be your colony that's lost. This creature has already destroyed 17 worlds according to Ambassador Kell. Earth could be next." Moore ran a hand through his thinning hair. "The evacuation will be complete in 30 minutes. We're cutting it close, but it's our best option." The engineer nodded reluctantly. "I'll need to override several safety protocols, and someone will have to initiate the sequence manually. The failsafes can't be bypassed remotely. I'll do it, Reed said without hesitation. With respect, Captain, came Torres's voice from the doorway. You're needed to coordinate from the Dauntless. This is a job for someone who knows how to set explosives and run like hell afterward. Reed wanted to argue, but Torres was right. As the commanding officer, his responsibility was to the bigger picture. How close do you need to be? He asked more. Control room adjacent to the reactor chamber, the engineer replied. It's shielded, but only against normal operation levels. When this thing blows... He left the implication hanging. Torres checked his weapon. Then I'd better not stick around to watch. What's the minimum time delay you can set? 3 minutes? From final authentication. Torres nodded. More than enough time. While they finalized the plan, Dr. Wells worked with Davis to modify the resonance field. If we reconfigure the field to create a torus pattern centered on the fusion plant, Amanda explained, we can essentially funnel the creature toward the reactor. Like baiting a trap, Davis said, understanding. But how do we ensure it takes the bait? Amanda's expression was grim. We shut down all resonance generators except the ones creating the path we want it to follow. It will naturally gravitate toward the area where it can exist in its natural state, giving it an escape route that leads directly to our trap, Davis concluded. In the settlement's central plaza, the final evacuation ships were loading. Families clutched whatever possessions they could carry, their faces etched with the grief of leaving their homes behind. Governor Greaves supervised personally, checking names against the manifest. Everyone gets out, he insisted when Reed approached. That was our deal. Everyone will, Reed assured him. But we need to move faster. Once the creature realizes what we're doing. As if on cue, a tremendous crash echoed from the eastern perimeter. The entity had broken through another defensive line, moving closer to the evacuation zone. It's getting smarter, Torres observed. Targeting our weakest points. Reed addressed the remaining officers. Final positions, everyone. Torres, get to the fusion plant and prepare the reactor. Dr. Wells, begin reconfiguring the resonance field. On my mark. Major Wilson, your team will run interference. Keep that thing occupied until the last civilians are away. Wilson nodded grimly. We'll give it something to think about. As the team dispersed, Ambassador Kell approached Reed one last time. Your plan is audacious, the alien said. But I have studied your species' history. You have survived through ingenuity when strength failed. Perhaps that is why the Eternal came here. It sensed a worthy adversary at last. Let's hope we prove worthy enough, Reed replied. With the final evacuees boarding, Reed gave the signal. Throughout the settlement, resonance generators powered down in sequence, creating a clear path that led directly to the fusion plant. As predicted, the creature followed the path of least resistance, moving steadily toward the trap. Torres reached the reactor control room, quickly inputting the override codes Moore had provided. The fusion reactor's safety systems protested, with a series of alarms that he systematically silenced. I'm in position, he reported over the comm. Reactor prep underway. Need 5 minutes to complete the sequence. Understood, Reed replied from the command shuttle. The entity is taking the bait. ETA to your position approximately 7 minutes. Torres worked methodically, rerouting power and disabling failsafes. On a nearby monitor, he could see the creature's progress through the settlement. It moved with purpose now, as if sensing freedom from the constraining resonance field. Outside the plant, Major Wilson's team made their final stand, using the last of their heavy weapons to slow the creature's advance. One by one, they fell back toward the waiting shuttles as their ammunition dwindled. In the command shuttle lifting off from the surface, Reed watched the operation unfold on tactical displays. The last civilian ships were already breaking atmosphere, heading for the safety of the Dauntless and the other rescue vessels in orbit. Torres, status? Reed demanded as the creature drew closer to the fusion plant. Sequence programmed, awaiting final authorization. Reed hesitated only briefly. You have authorization, Lieutenant. Set the timer and get out of there. Aye, Captain. Torres's fingers flew over the console, inputting the final command sequence. The reactor's core began to pulse faster, the blue glow intensifying as the containment field prepared to collapse. Timer set for 3 minutes. Torres confirmed. He looked up at the monitor and froze. The creature had changed direction, moving at incredible speed directly toward his position. It knows, he realized aloud. Somehow it knows what we're doing. Reed heard the change in Torres's voice. Lieutenant, evacuate immediately. That's an order. Torres watched as the creature smashed through the outer defenses of the fusion plant. The security doors leading to his position began to buckle under tremendous force. No time, Captain, he said calmly. It's coming for the reactor controls. If it reaches them, it might be able to stop the overload. He made his decision in an instant, drawing his sidearm and aiming at the reactor control console. Lieutenant, don't, Reed began. Torres smiled grimly. Tell them I did my duty, Captain. He fired 3 precise shots into the control systems, ensuring the overload sequence could not be stopped. As the door finally gave way and darkness filled the control room, Lieutenant Ben Torres stood his ground, weapon still raised in defiance. The explosion bloomed like a miniature sun on the surface of Proxima B, visible even from orbit. The Dauntless and the evacuation fleet had retreated to a safe distance, but the shockwave still rocked the smaller vessels. On the bridge, Captain Reed watched in silence as the colony he had sworn to protect disappeared in nuclear fire. Radiation levels are off the charts, Davis reported quietly. The fusion core collapse created exactly what we theorized. A quantum singularity. Unstable, but potent. And the creature? Reed asked. Davis studied her readings. No sign of it. The singularity appears to have collapsed back in on itself, taking a significant portion of the planet's surface with it. The bridge crew maintained a respectful silence, mourning their lost comrade and the sacrifice he had made. Lieutenant Torres had known the risks, but had faced them without hesitation. Hours later, Reed sat alone in his quarters, composing letters to the families of those lost in the battle. There was a soft knock at his door. Enter, he called. Ambassador Kell stepped inside, ducking his tall frame beneath the human-sized doorway. I've come to offer the gratitude of the Arcturus Alliance, Captain. Your people accomplished what ours could not in 9 centuries. Reed gestured to a chair. We paid a heavy price for it. Indeed, the ambassador agreed, sitting awkwardly on the human furniture. Your Lieutenant Torres will be remembered among my people as a hero. Cold comfort to his family, Reed replied. Kell made that complex gesture again. Respect and resignation, combined. Yet it is all we can offer those who sacrifice for others. My government wishes to establish a more formal alliance with Earth. Your species has proven invaluable. Before Reed could respond, his comm unit chimed. Captain to the bridge, urgent, came Davis's voice, tension evident despite her professional tone. Reed was on his feet immediately. What is it, Commander? We're detecting something. You need to see this. When Reed reached the bridge, with Ambassador Kell close behind, the main view screen showed a real-time image of the devastation. Below, where New Haven had once stood, was now a massive crater, still glowing with residual energy from the explosion. What am I looking at? Reed demanded. Davis manipulated the controls, zooming in on the crater's center. This energy signature appeared approximately 20 minutes ago. It's growing. In the center of the destruction, a pinpoint of darkness was forming, a spot where light seemed to bend and distort. No, Ambassador Kell whispered, his skin paling to a lighter blue. It cannot be, but the readings were unmistakable. The quantum singularity they had created was becoming unstable, the fabric of space-time around it warping in familiar patterns. It's coming back, Reed realized, his voice hollow. The explosion didn't kill it, it just displaced it temporarily. Dr. Wells rushed onto the bridge, having analyzed the data from her lab. The singularity created a bridge between dimensions, she explained breathlessly. We essentially gave it a direct path home, and now it's using that same path to return. Reed's mind raced. Their best plan had failed. The creature had adapted to even a quantum singularity, perhaps even grown stronger from the experience, and now they had no planet-based resources to use against it. Options? He demanded of his officers. Davis shook her head. The resonance. Technology requires massive power generation. We can't reproduce it on the ship. We can't fight it conventionally, Wilson added. We've proven that. Ambassador Kell stepped forward. My ship carries a prototype dimensional stabilizer. It was designed to seal ruptures in space-time during our early experiments with faster-than-light travel. Perhaps... Could it seal the breach the creature is using to return? Reed asked. Theoretically, Kell replied. But it would require precise application at the exact coordinates of the dimensional tear. Someone would need to take it directly to the surface. The implication was clear. Another suicide mission. Reed had already lost too many people to ask for more sacrifices. I'll go, he said firmly. Captain, regulations clearly state, Davis began. This isn't about regulations, Reed cut her off. This is about finishing what we started. Before anyone could argue further, Communications Officer Patel interrupted. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the surface. The bridge fell silent. That's impossible, Wilson said. Everyone was evacuated. Put it through, Reed ordered. The view screen shifted, showing static at first, then resolving into an image that caused several officers to gasp. Lieutenant Ben Torres stood in what appeared to be the shattered remains of the fusion plant's control room, his uniform torn and his face bloodied but very much alive. Torres? Reed asked in disbelief. How? No time to explain, Captain. Torres interrupted, his voice breaking with static. The thing is coming back. I can feel it. The whole area is wrong somehow. Reality is thin here. We're sending a rescue shuttle, Reed began. Torres shook his head. No good, sir. No one else should come down here. But I think I can still stop it. Lieutenant, you've done enough, Reed insisted. Torres managed a pained smile. With respect, Captain, I'm already dead. The radiation levels here are, well, let's just say I'm living on borrowed time. He panned the camera to show what remained of the control room. Despite the devastation, some systems were still partially functioning, powered by backup generators that had somehow survived. The core didn't completely collapse, Torres explained. There's still enough fissionable material to trigger another reaction. If I can restart the sequence and contain it differently this time, direct the energy precisely at the dimensional tear, as it's forming, you could seal it permanently, Ambassador Kell finished, understanding immediately. It's a theory, Torres admitted, but I've got nothing to lose by testing it. Reed wanted to argue, to find another way, but the dark spot on the planet's surface was growing larger with each passing minute. Soon the Harbinger would return, possibly stronger than before. What do you need from us? Reed asked finally. Coordinates, Torres replied. I need to know exactly where to direct the energy, and maybe a blueprint for that dimensional stabilizer your blue friend mentioned. Ambassador Kell stepped forward. I will transmit the specifications immediately. As the ambassador worked with Davis to send the necessary data, Reed spoke privately to Torres. Ben, I'm sorry. Torres shook his head. Don't be, Jack. This is what we do. We face the impossible and find a way through. He paused, then added, besides, I saw something when the core collapsed. Just for an instant I glimpsed the other side. Where this thing comes from. We cannot let it return. The data transfer completed, and Torres reviewed the specifications. Quickly. I can work with this. Using what's left of the reactor, I should be able to create a directed energy pulse that mimics your stabilizer's effect. How long? Reed asked. Torres glanced at instrumentation off camera. The tear is expanding exponentially. I'd say we have less than 30 minutes before our friend is back in full force. And after that? After that, Torres said grimly, it's your problem again, Captain. As Torres began his work, Reed ordered the fleet to fall back to a safer distance. Whatever happened next, they needed to be prepared for the worst. You think he can do it? Davis asked quietly. Reed watched the dark anomaly growing on the view screen, a void in reality itself. Below, a single human worked desperately to save not just one world, but potentially countless others. If anyone can, Reed replied, it's Torres. The next 27 minutes passed with excruciating slowness. On the bridge of the Dauntless, every officer stood at their post, watching the anomaly grow on the view screen. The black void now spanned nearly half a kilometer, occasionally rippling with strange energies. Torres's voice came through intermittently, growing weaker with each transmission as radiation poisoning took its toll. Yet he worked methodically, adapting Ambassador Kell's dimensional stabilizer design to the damaged fusion reactor. "Almost ready," he reported, his breathing labored. "I've reconfigured the containment field to direct the collapse energy like a lance. When the Harbinger materializes, it should seal the breach and trap it between dimensions." "Your plan is sound," Ambassador Kell assured him. "My people will remember this act of courage." Torres laughed weakly. "Just make sure that alliance with Earth happens, Ambassador. We humans tend to find trouble wherever we go. Might be nice to have friends out there." The sensor suddenly spiked, alarms blaring across the bridge. Dimensional breach expanding. "Rapidly," Davis reported tensely. "Something's coming through." On the surface, Torres saw it too, the darkness coalescing, taking shape. First a tendril, then many, reaching through from somewhere beyond normal space. The creature they had fought, the supposedly unkillable Harbinger, was returning. "Initiating. Final sequence," Torres announced. His fingers, now clumsy with radiation sickness, pressed the commands. The damaged reactor hummed to life one last time, drawing power from emergency reserves. The remaining fusion material began to superheat, approaching critical mass. "Energy focused on breach coordinates," Torres confirmed. "Containment field modified to Ambassador Kell's specifications." From orbit, the bridge crew watched with bated breath. The dark tier in reality grew larger. The creature nearly fully emerged, its massive form even more horrifying than before. What had been merely unsettling was now truly alien, a writhing mass of limbs and shapes that seemed to violate the laws of geometry. "Torres, it's now or never," Reed called through the comm. On the surface, Torres stared directly at the emerging monstrosity. Pain racked his body, but his mind remained clear. He had one job left to do. "You know," he said conversationally to the creature, "on Earth, we have a saying. If at first you don't succeed—" His hand slammed down on the final activation control. "Try again." The fusion reactor's remaining core detonated, but unlike the previous explosion, this one was contained and directed. A spear of pure energy, part matter, part antimatter, part dimensional force, lanced directly into the breach where the creature was emerging. The light was blinding, even from orbit. The Dauntless's sensors temporarily overloaded, leaving the view screen blank. "Status report," Reed demanded when the systems began to recover. Davis worked quickly at her station. "Energy pulse successful. The modified containment field directed 98% of the explosion energy directly at the dimensional breach." "And the creature?" Ambassador Kell asked. The sensors cleared, showing the surface of Proxima B once more. Where the tear in reality had been growing, there was now nothing. Not even the crater remained. Just a perfectly smooth, circular depression in the planet's surface, as if that section of reality had been excised with surgical precision. "The breach is closed," Davis confirmed, her voice filled with wonder. "Completely sealed. No residual dimensional energy detected." "And Lieutenant Torres?" Reed asked, though he already knew the answer. Davis shook her head. "No life signs detected in the target area." A solemn silence fell over the bridge. Ambassador Kell performed an elaborate gesture that Reed didn't recognize. Something ceremonial, perhaps a blessing for the departed. "He succeeded," the ambassador said softly. "The creature is trapped between dimensions, neither fully in our universe nor in its own. A fate worse than death for such an entity." "How can you be sure?" Reed asked. "The dimensional stabilizer technology doesn't destroy," Kell explained. "It seals. If Torres modified it correctly, he created a pocket of null space, a bubble between realities where the entity will remain forever, unable to fully exist in either dimension." Reed stared at the view screen, at the smooth depression that marked Torres's final stand. "An unkillable monster," he murmured. "Imprisoned by human ingenuity," Kell finished. "My people will build a monument on that spot, Captain. A reminder of what one determined human accomplished." In the following weeks, as the colonists established a new settlement on Proxima C, Reed found himself frequently staring at the stars from the observation deck of the Dauntless. The Arcturus Alliance had formally requested Earth's admission to their interstellar coalition, citing humanity's unique problem-solving capabilities as an invaluable asset. Ambassador Kell joined him one evening, the two of them now something close to friends after their shared ordeal. My superiors have asked me to convey a question, Kel said without preamble. There are other threats in our galaxy, perhaps not as ancient as the Eternal, but dangerous nonetheless. They wish to know if humanity would consider joining a joint defense initiative. Reed smiled slightly. They want our help with their impossible problems. Precisely, Kel admitted. You humans have a reputation now. For recklessness? Reed asked, echoing their first conversation. For refusing to accept defeat, Kel corrected. For finding solutions where others see only doom. Reed thought of Torres, of his sacrifice and his determination. One human, facing an unkillable monster, had found a way to succeed where entire civilizations had failed. Tell your superiors we accept, Reed said. But I have one condition. Name it, Kel replied. Reed gestured toward the stars, toward the countless worlds that humanity was only beginning to explore. Whatever impossible monsters are out there, whatever unkillable horrors threaten the peace of the galaxy, we face them together, as allies. Kel's four arms performed the gesture Reed now recognized as solemn agreement. Together. The ambassador confirmed. As the Dauntless prepared for its journey back to Earth, Reed wrote his final report on the Harbinger incident. He ended it with words that would eventually become the unofficial motto of humanity's new role in the interstellar community. When faced with the impossible, humans don't turn away. We don't accept defeat. We innovate. We adapt. And sometimes, we sacrifice. But we never, ever give up. An unkillable monster? Challenge accepted. The end.